AIM and OTC-listed Helium One Global is exploring for helium in Tanzania across 3 major project areas. Helium is used for many industrial purposes, and HE1 believes it has the potential to become a major player in a supply-constrained market. The flagship Rukwa project is in the massive Rukwa Rift Basin in southwest Tanzania, and it has partially been de-risked by the 2021 drilling campaign, which identified a working helium system. And yesterday, of course, we had an RNS about the airborne technical analysis completed at Balangida Basin. We're joined tonight by CEO David Minchin, who will talk about that and much more, no doubt. Welcome, David.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to present on Helium One here today. It's a very exciting project discovering primary helium in the southwest corners of Tanzania with over 3,000 square kilometers of license area, and I'm delighted to be introducing the company to you, your listeners. Quick disclaimer statement. Helium One is exploring in the de-risked Rukwa Basin, where drilling last year has encountered multiple prospective intervals and identified helium shows, good quality reservoir, thick sealing units, and all the mechanisms of a working system. We've had a bumpy 24 months since our listing. In fact, it was our 2-year birthday just 2 days ago. So we've had it all. We had a strong run up into our drilling in 21, slimline well, which unfortunately, because of technical issues, we weren't able to test despite receiving excellent results and all the proof of concept for a working helium system that we were looking for. The last 12 months has been challenging for us against the headwinds of a high oil and gas price to secure drilling rig and services for our project in Tanzania. However, the reason why I'm talking to you today is I'm delighted to announce and to tell everyone that we are back on the ground. We have an MOU executed with Exalo Drilling, one of the leading providers in onshore drilling rigs and associated services. We have integrated services to be provided by Baker Hughes, who's one of the world's leading energy technology companies. Both these rigs have been secured exclusively for MOU, exclusively by Helium One, to start drilling again in Rukwa in Q1 2023. Where are we drilling? We're going back to Thai. Why? Because we've developed our subsurface knowledge on an integrated matrix of geological data sets, and we are focusing on discovery. We know there's a working helium system at Thai. We know that there's helium to be found. We are now have in our hands the right tools, the right people, and the right equipment to go out and make this discovery. So why helium? A lot of people are familiar with the helium market and the fundamentals of it. Some people are not. It's got a range of high value end usages. It's unsubstitutable in a number of high tech, high value manufacturing processes, in MRI scanners, in space exploration and computing, etc. We've seen demand being driven up quite strongly by the semiconductor sector in the last few years, and we're expecting demand to grow by between 4 and 5% CAGR to reach 8.5 billion cubic feet by 2030. Compared to that, the supply side has been hammered. The closure of the US Federal Reserve in 2019 created a supply crisis that has now been exacerbated after the illegal Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Western companies which were developing helium from the Moore project have now all left Russia, and there is a 2.1 billion cubic foot supply gap in future demand, and that is not going to go away. It's been exacerbated as LNG processes are now piping gas directly into Spain. But fundamentally, the problem is that the existing supply is inelastic. It's based on a byproduct of hydrocarbon, and it's a new primary source is required. This challenging supply outlook has been reflected in quite dramatic price increases. In the last year or so, we've seen long-term imported prices in China at over $400 an MCF. We're seeing spot prices at over $1,000 an MCF, and end users are expecting it to go higher. We would have seen in November this year that NASA signed a 5-year long-term contract for 1.2 billion cubic feet of helium at a price of $920 per MCF. That's almost twice what the existing contract price is. So there is an expectation amongst end users that prices are going to continue to rise as the supply shortage continues to hit home. And this is where Helium One comes in. Helium One is exploring for primary helium. This is high-grade helium, not associated with hydrocarbon or any greenhouse gases. We've measured seeps at surface at over 10.5% helium. That's 50 to 200 times higher grade than anything which is currently in production. We've got 3,500 square kilometers of license area in Tanzania along the helium fairway. It's the best license area in Tanzania, which, because of the various unique geological factors that have come into generating and releasing this helium, make it probably the best helium license areas in the world. We have developed over our nearly 6 years of operation. We've spent over $20 million in exploration and have developed an integrated matrix of geological data sets. This is everything from multi-spectral satellite spectroscopy, which is used to identify small-scale seeps and diffuse seeps, which you can't spot on the ground the same way as you can with macro seeps, where you can take samples of gas from the bubbles. This is a diffuse seepage, which can be recognized through satellites. We've combined that with electrical resistivity tomography, airborne gravity gradiometry to understand deep-seated basin structures for migration pathways and looking for high points where there is potential for closures, which we then follow up with 2D seismic to understand how these structures are reflected in the sediment above, with our primary targets in the lake beds and in the Karoo, where we've got good quality seals as well as excellent quality reservoirs. And we know about this because, of course, we've been drilling that last year. We were able to recover an awful lot of data from that hole. Not all the data that we'd like. Unfortunately, because of the technical issues which we experienced, we weren't able to run a wireline. But we were able to pull out an awful lot of knowledge, including rock chips, which we were able to run ChemScan on to really get a detailed understanding of the stratigraphy, and also gas chromatography, where we identified those multiple helium shows from surface all the way down to basement. And importantly, some good quality helium shows in the Karoo, which remains our primary target because of the thick sealing claystone above the sandstone. After integrating all of that knowledge, getting a real understanding of the basin system and of the prospectivity, the way the helium migrates and is trapped and stored, we decided to go back and do a tie again. Why are we going back to tie? Well, because we're not focusing on exploration, we're focusing on discovery. Our drill location has been guided by the phase 2 seismic, which has improved the definition over the time prospect. We have the drill well there, which tells us what the stratigraphy is, which has indicated these multiple helium shows, which you can see as the blue dots on this seismic section on the left there, that tell us we have a working helium system. We were incredibly encouraged by the results of 2021, and that is why we're going back again. We're in a better position because we have more data, we have more knowledge, so we're able to position our wells better. The initial drilling in 21 was actually the wrong side of the bounding fault to test for closure in the lake bed. So the test first well in well 1 is designed to test both closures, the lake bed closure and the higher topography Karoo closure. We've got a much better understanding of the size of the closure, of how the fault continues off to the northwest, and we have a good, robust structural closure, which we are hoping to prove will hold helium gases. And how are we going to prove it? With this large rig being provided by Exalo. It is currently in operation in Southern Africa. Our understanding is it is due to be released before the end of the year. Once it gets released, it gets broken down into 28-ton loads and transported to Rukwa, so we're able to start drilling as soon as the rig and services arrive on site. This is a much bigger rig than we had last year. We've included humans for scale, and the picture on the right, those are not pygmies, those are real size people. This is a 1,200 horsepower draw works, 300-ton hook load and 43-meter mast. It's currently drilling at 3,500 meters, so we have a great deal of confidence that this rig gives us the best chance of making a good quality hole, 8.5 inch, all the way to basement. So we're able to test the well and confirm the discovery that we're all hoping to find. The rig is being accompanied by the Baker Hughes integrated service package. Baker Hughes are one of the world leaders in well site technology, and they're a leading energy technology company. They have 100 years experience in 120 countries around the world. It should not be underestimated the importance of having Baker Hughes as our partners and our technology partners in this project. They have the latest scientific instruments in their quad combo logging tool, which will assist in identifying helium gas in the subsurface. We plan to test that gas using a reservoir characterization instrument, an RCI tool. This is basically a downhole gas sampling tool. It goes down the hole, and a probe comes out of the sides directly into the reservoir rock to suck a sample of gas into a chamber where it gets sealed and recovered back to surface. Now, this has actually multiple advantages over an open hole drill stem test. Firstly, you're taking point samples, so you know exactly where your gas sample is coming from, whereas a drill stem test, open hole, tests a section. Secondly, you're able to take pressure readings. Now, that's very important, especially in a reservoir like the Karoo, where we know we've got interbedded clays and mudstones, because by looking at the reservoir and by looking at the pressures in the different reservoirs and the sandstones, you're able to understand the connectivity between the layers, which helps substantially in your reservoir modeling and in your production designs. Thirdly, you're collecting samples of fluids and gases in situ and at their in situ pressures and temperatures, which all feeds into important knowledge for understanding the reservoir which you have and understanding the prospect which you're analysing. Another big advantage of Baker Hughes coming to site is they have all of the equipment in order to pressurize cement a 7-inch liner down the hole. This means that the discovery well can then be completed and used and suspended as an appraisal well. So we can come back at a later stage, we can perforate, and we can do the 30-day flow tests, etc. To give us all the engineering knowledge that we need to be able to fast track this into production. The drilling is targeted in Q1 2023. The unknowns, the uncertainty on this timeline would come around the rig release and the logistics, both of which are being sorted out under commercial terms as we speak. Drilling is anticipated to take about a month, with results to come at the end of the well. So not a long lead from here until first gas. Looking ahead, a discovery at Tai is just the beginning. We have big ambitions to grow this company from an explorer to becoming a globally strategic producer and supplier of helium. into a global market. We would facilitate that by fast-tracking tie into production. As already stated, the exploration well becomes the discovery well, becomes the appraisal well, and we can run all of our feasibility and engineering from the one well to go rapidly from discovery into applying for mining licenses, and then onwards into production. In parallel to doing that, we've only run detailed seismic over 10% of the Balangida Basin, sorry, of the Rukwa Basin. There's a huge amount of upside to be found, and we're only just scratching the surface of our potential. So I'm keen to move in parallel our phase 3 exploration across the remainder of the Rukwa Basin, and of course into Eyasi and Balangida, our pipeline projects. We're keen to grow the pipeline of the project in Tanzania and around the world. You know, the Tanzanian discoveries, Tanzanian projects which we have, are well suited for export out to China and the Far East and India, etc. There are other projects around the world which are, you know, we have a team now of helium experts, geologists and operators who understand how to evaluate these projects, and we can identify many low-value projects, undervalued projects, which can help to expand our footprint to become a globally strategic supplier of primary helium, which is what the end users need. The lowest hanging fruit in our pipeline is obviously Eyasi and Balangida. We've got 1,000 square kilometers on both those licenses. We've measured helium seeps in these up to 10.6%. Interestingly, we also measured argon. So argon is another noble gas. It's got another range of industrial usages. And a rapidly growing market. We've measured 2% of surface, which is about twice what you'd expect in the atmosphere. It's interesting as a byproduct potential, but importantly for me, argon is sourced from the radiogenic decay of potassium-40, which you find in basement felspars, and it gets released by the same mechanism releases the helium, which is warm fluids coming through the crystalline basement and triggering the release of gas into the basin. So measuring argon also gives us a great deal of confidence that the system which is sourcing helium is working. And the work that we've done here with the airborne gravity gradiometry to really get our heads around how the basement structure is working and the evolution of the basin. This all feeds into defining our phase 3 seismic plan for Eyasi and Balangida, as well as Rukwa, and then to define drill targets and expand our pipeline. You know, we are a company, we are an exploration company, we are a growth company, so we're going to grow. The other string of our growth is, of course, fast tracking any discovery at tie into production. Now, we have worked on a modular helium separation plant. These are constructed off-site and brought to site, where they're clipped together with the wellhead, etc. It's relatively low capital cost compared to the margin. We have outlined numbers for $50 million per plant to produce 350,000 MCF per year at an operating cost of about $20 an MCF. At a price of $400, that is a dramatic margin. If the scientists at NASA are correct, and we're looking at northwards of $920 per MCF, the margins on any form of production become astronomical, and it is of interest for us, the company, to be able to bring tie into production as quickly as we can, so that we're able to take advantage of that high price and be able to self-finance our continued exploration and development work across the rest of the basin. The logistics out of Rukwa are incredibly simple. There's 130 kilometers on the lower road, which is there photographed on the top left. It's not all of it that pretty, but you get the idea that it's a good quality gravel road with a laterite topping. It is passable all year round. And then you're on to the Tanzam Highway. I took that photo myself, one on the top right. I've spent lots of time on that road. It's slow and boring, but it's well maintained, and it gets you from A to B in a safe and considerate manner.
Okay, it's about time to wrap. Are you okay with that?
Time to wrap. Okay. There's one
20
last point I
minutes.
wanted to make about our primary product, which is that it comes without any associated greenhouse gases. This is especially important when you look around current helium supply, where 1,000 litres of helium from Qatar North Field, enough to fill one MRI scanner, requires the consumption of 2.5 million litres of hydrocarbon. If you scale that up and you consider a NASA Artemis launch requires 12 tons of helium, that's 30,000 tons of natural gas. So what we're doing, because of our unique geology and our unique helium nitrogen mix, we are able to produce a carbon neutral source of helium, which sets us up to be the primary supplier into the 21st century, with the right commodity at the right time, in a de-risked basin, with the right management team, the right equipment, the right rig, the right services to explore, discover, and develop a world-class project, which can be a changer for the supply of this high-value, high-tech, highly strategic commodity into the next century. Thank you very much, and I will open the floor to questions, I suppose.
David, that was fantastic. It sounds like you've got a very exciting project there.
Yeah, I have. It's been quite challenging over the last year because, as I mentioned, with the headwinds of the high oil and gas price, trying to secure rig and services to come out to Tanzania has been very hard. The teams all worked incredibly to bring this together, despite multiple hiccups and dead ends, we're delighted to be able to go back onto the ground. We're delighted to be drilling in Q1. It's a really exciting time for us.
So talking about drilling in Q1, what do you think the chances of commercial success on this drill are, asks Adrian Calder.
So we obviously have internal numbers for chance of success. We don't discuss them in public because, as you know, it's a formulaic approach which works best to compare like for like within the same basin. Which is the best lead? Which is the best prospect? Where do you want to test? What I will say is, if you think about the component parts of the system, which is source, migration, reservoir, seal, trap, we know we've got source. Because we've seen helium seeping up to surface, and we've measured it at up to 10.6% helium. We know we've got migration because we've got macro seeps identified by multi-satellite spectroscopy across the basin. We have an understanding of the deep-seated architecture of the basin from the AGG work that we've done, which points us towards the regional faults where they correlate with these micro seeps. We're able to say, yes, there is helium migrating within the basin. Do we know we've got reservoir? Yes, we're very familiar with the reservoir because of the drilling that we did in Thai in 2021 that identified high porosity sands, and which was almost part of the problem, actually. It was a very good reservoir, which resulted in the downhole issues which we have. We know we've got
there's a yes or a no to this, is there? Do you expect to find commercial success, or do you not expect to find commercial success at time?
Well, of course I expect to find commercial success. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
That's all right. That's fine.
That's a yes.
It's a yes. Brilliant. Mike Flowers asks, do you have enough cash to mobilise and complete the drilling of Thai? Thai 2, he means.
There's been a lot of speculation about our cash position. And we put out our put out our annual results at the beginning of today, and people have seen that. Exploration is an expensive game. We haven't been out to market for 18 months, but we have been very frugal with our cash. Looking at the annual results, you'll have seen that there was a loss marked of some $13 million, but $8.7 million of that was due to an impairment on licenses which we relinquished. That's an accounting loss. So the way in which we account our exploration spend is we distribute it equally amongst all of our licenses and amongst all of our acreage. When we relinquished 1,000 square kilometers, which we did because it was non-prospective and non-valuable land, we had to account that as a loss. So when you take that accounting loss away from the overall loss, you can realize that actually we've been very frugal with the money that we have, and we still have capital reserves. Having said that, exploration is an expensive game, and the important thing is to make sure the money spent in the ground is value accretive. We're planning a highly value accretive exploration campaign, and exploration success at Tai in Q1 of 2023 is going to be good news for all shareholders. So as I said, I'm really excited to be going back onto the ground, and I'm really excited on getting the rig turning and hopefully bringing a discovery for all of our long-term shareholders.
Okay, Josh Cole takes us to Eyasi and Balangida, and he says he appreciates all the hard work this year. At least two people have said that, and that's always positive. Keep it up, he says. And then he says, are you looking to get a drill program at either of those two basins?
Yes, there's the work which Lorna intelligently put together on Balangida, and that workflow for understanding the basin architecture, which we're going to now apply to Eyasi. This is the first step in bringing these basins into a drill-ready status. So the geophysical, there's remote geophysical work now that will allow us to plan our seismic, which will identify closures and traps, which would then be hopefully identify closures and traps for us to then come in and drill test. So
if I could interrupt you there, David, it's clever technology, but is it proven technology? Are you convinced that it actually works?
The results are very encouraging. So it's a known technology in understanding the basin architecture. We're not going to look at the gravity and say, oh, just drill there. No, but it leads you into the next step, and the next step is to do the seismic analysis, to do the seismic data gathering, and then analyze that and interpret it and look for your closures and your trapping structures. So that's where we are, and I'm delighted to look forward to drilling in Eyasi and Balangida.
Brilliant. So it's sort of small steps, small discovery steps.
This is the way it goes. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Again, if you've got 1,000 square kilometers or 3,000 square kilometers we have, and we're putting down one 8.5-inch hole, that means that 99.99999% of your area you've not drilled. So you've got to make sure you're drilling in just the right spot.
We've got lots and lots of questions to get through, so I'm going to keep pushing on. Adrian Calder says a few people have asked this. There's this, including Adrian, there's a speculation about a capital raise on the bulletin boards, those lovely bulletin boards that we love so much. Is this likely, and if so, when?
So as I've said, we've still have money in the bank. We've not been out to market for a long time, and it's important to us that we bring the most value accretive returns to shareholders with the money that we've got. So, the important thing for us is to make sure that we have a successful exploration drilling campaign in Q1 of 2023, and that delivers the discovery which everybody needs, and that's what we're focusing on.
Fantastic. Okay, Ben Cole, last question. Ben Cole's, when do you expect the MOUs will develop into the signing of contracts? That's not a bad last question, is it?
Yeah, that's a good one. We're advancing our contract negotiations. They're going well. Obviously, there's not a lot I can tell you about it because it's all commercial. But yeah, we Exalo are keen to come to us, and we're keen for them to come there as well. So it's in process, and we will let you know.
Fantastic, and there we go. It's 33 minutes past the hour, and it's time to say goodbye to you, David. You've been a star. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to all your shareholders who've joined us as well. Thank you. That was fantastic.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks.
Pleasure was ours.